Whether you are a brand new collector or you're a veteran that's been doing it for decades, you've most likely experienced some sort of anxiety or possibly some FOMO, or maybe made a bad impulse purchase that you shouldn't have. And I think that this affects basically any collector. It doesn't matter what you collect. It could be video games, it could be clown dolls. It really doesn't matter. I think that this is a problem that everyone experiences at least once. I know that I have, and I've got some specific stories I'm going to share with you guys later in this video. And hopefully we can bring some light to this and help people understand exactly what it is, why it happens, and possibly how to avoid it for yourself. There are all sorts of emotions that are involved and you might experience when it comes to a collecting hobby. And I think for most people, the majority of those feelings are excitement, enjoyment, happiness, something along those lines, and hopefully people are having fun when they're collecting. That's kind of the whole point, right? But I've been collecting long enough to see that a lot of times people will also experience frustration, envy, jealousy, anger, hatred, something along those lines. And it's very, very unfortunate because I think when people do experience those emotions around collecting, it comes from a kind of like natural human instinct of self-preservation or some sort of selfishness. And that's just kind of how it is sometimes, right? But I think those of us that can recognize that and work on being better about that, we're going to enjoy collecting more. And that's what I try to do. It's not easy. I fail at it all the time. But if you can be happy for someone about collecting versus being jealous of them, you're going to enjoy collecting more. But there's another emotion that I think people don't really realize or talk about much, and that is anxiety. And usually you hear about anxiety when it comes to like social interactions or going into public or whatever you have to do. Maybe you have to do some sort of presentation or public speaking, and you can feel some anxiety about that, which is perfectly normal. But I think when it comes to collecting, the anxiety aspect of it is something that is often overlooked. And I think if you can recognize this, it's going to make collecting more enjoyable for you. So for me personally, I don't have anxiety. Like it's, you know, sometimes here and there, but it's not something that I struggle with on a daily basis. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But when it comes to collecting, I have experienced it at certain points, and it's never fun. Anxiety can be experienced in collecting in a variety of different ways, but I think the main way and the main thing that causes anxiety for people is having to make decisions. And for some people that maybe already have to deal with anxiety in their normal lives, this is going to be amplified. But I think for everybody, we experience anxiety at least at some point in our lives, right? And making decisions for some people will be a lot easier for others. But when you're collecting, you have to make all sorts of decisions all the time, some of which are very minor and some of which could be big deals. But you have to make decisions all the time. You have to decide whether or not you are going to buy this item that you're seeing. You also have to decide whether or not the price point is either fair or something that you can afford. You have to decide if you're going to spend the day going out and hunting. You have to decide whether you're going to spend the time and the money to travel somewhere to game hunt or to do whatever. You have to decide whether or not you're going to attend a convention and deal with the massive crowds of people. That can be a huge source of anxiety for some people, being in big crowds. And so there's just all these little decisions that you have to make. And for some people, it's going to be very easy. You can say, well, I have no problem with big crowds. And of course I'm going to go to the convention because it's super fun and it's awesome. And that's true. But for some people, making that decision isn't that easy. And for me personally, since I don't feel those feelings, I don't have any problem going to a convention, and I have a lot of fun doing so. But I can also recognize and understand that for some people, it's not that easy. And when I experience anxiety with collecting, it's not in those ways. If I can't afford to buy something, I simply will not buy it. But the part that gives me anxiety is the part that is self-imposed, and that is posting my stuff publicly on the internet. Making YouTube videos, posting on Facebook, whatever it is. Even if all the decisions that I've made about this particular thing have been positive and I've been happy and excited about them and it doesn't negatively impact me in any way, once I post that video, I can get negative comments. I have people tell me all the time in comments that I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm a hoarder, I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my money, I'm wasting my life. And while I don't let those comments get to me because I don't agree with them, I don't believe them to be true, it still does cause a little bit of anxiety whenever I have to read some annoying thing and I have to delete it, or I have to block a person for just being toxic, whatever it is. It's still not fun, right? Even though I don't believe them and I don't care necessarily, it's still annoying to have to deal with. And if I happen to misspeak in a video, or something gets taken out of context or misconstrued or something like that, that can cause backlash, and then it's annoying to have to deal with that. And just thinking about like, how are people coming to this conclusion? That's not what I said, which has happened plenty of times before. And there's a little bit of anxiety with that, right? When I make a video like this, I want to tell you guys my thoughts. I don't have a script that I'm reading from. This is just all off the top of my head, but I want to convey my message clearly and make sure that you can understand it. And sometimes that doesn't come across properly and people think something else that is not what I meant. And there's some anxiety with that. But overall, collecting is very, very fun. And I want it to stay that way. It is for me, and I hope that it can be for other people as well. So recognizing when you have anxiety about one of these things can be very helpful, because then you can hopefully try to understand why you're feeling that way, maybe make some changes to kind of combat that, and just make collecting fun, because that's what it should be. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that I'm working on finishing my Super Nintendo set, which you see back here. And I have a specific story related to this that is pretty recent, that has some sort of FOMO, anxiety, whatever you want to call it. And it was a situation where I made the correct decision, I made the right decision for myself. And I didn't buy something that I was so tempted to buy, but in the end, it worked out. And that is regarding Shien's Revenge for the Super Nintendo. This is a fairly hard to find game. It's like $300 to $600, somewhere in that range. And a local, not a local store, but a store that's up around Seattle had this game. I had seen it in the past, it was on my list, but when I saw it, it was priced a little bit too high for me, and it was in pretty rough condition. But since I'm getting really close to finishing this set, and it's something that I was hoping to finish in 2025, I felt a huge urge to actually purchase that game, because it's not a game that I had ever seen anywhere else for sale. And because I'm not just trying to go on eBay and buy the games I need, I have to kind of buy the games when I see them, right? And there's a little bit of, anxiety involved in that, because that does mean that sometimes I will overpay for something, or I will buy something that's not in quite the condition that I'm hoping for, because it's one of those last few that I need. And if I don't get it now, I might miss out. That's where the FOMO comes in, and I might not see it again. I might not see it again at that price. I might not see it again in this condition, something like that. But I decided to not get that game, primarily because the price was too high for me. And like I said, the condition wasn't the best, but I can usually deal with that. But the price on that game was too high. I decided to pass on it. And then later, I was at a convention, and the same game store that had that game had their booth set up, and they had the game with them. I was filming an SNES Quest video at that convention, and I was like, man, if I don't buy that game, I'm not going to find any games for this entire episode, and I didn't want that to happen. So I was really, really leaning towards buying that game. And I decided, I'm gonna hold off, maybe I'll get it on the last day of the show, because it was a 3-day convention. I am so glad that I did not buy it, because I had somebody randomly come to our booth offering to sell games, and one of the games that they had was this exact copy of Shien's Revenge. Not only was it way cheaper than the other copy, it's 10 times better condition than the other one as well. So that was a situation where I was very tempted, and I was anxious about making the decision whether to purchase that game or not, because I didn't want to ruin my video. I didn't want to leave empty-handed, but I held off. I think I made the correct decision, and in the end, I got something in better condition for a cheaper price. But that doesn't always happen. When I look around the game room here, there are so many items that I have upgraded condition on over time. There are so many things that I have purchased that maybe I shouldn't have, because they were either too expensive or they weren't in the condition that I wanted. And then later, I found a better one for a cheaper price. That happens all the time for me. I own a video game store, so there's a lot of times where something comes in and, you know, I'm able to upgrade the condition, and that's kind of normal, right? If I have this copy of Robotech and it's got water damage on the artwork, if someone trades in a clean copy, I might bring it home and swap it out for mine. That's just something that, you know, might normally happen. But I've also experienced it at other places where I go to a convention, or I go to a game store, or I'm doing a Craigslist or a Facebook Marketplace deal, whatever it is. I have definitely purchased tons of items in the past that I should have passed on for one reason or another. But the FOMO was, you know, gripping my brain, and I was like, man, I can't miss out on this. I can't not buy this because I might not find another one. And like I said, that's happened countless times. I've upgraded the condition on so many things because of that, because I purchased something that I should have just waited for, because later on I found a better one. The most recent example I can think of is with another Super Nintendo game that I purchased. I think I purchased it from someone through a Facebook group for, it was Packy and Marlin, and I purchased it for, I want to say it was like $300 shipped. And I was so happy because I'd never seen that game in person, and I got it in the mail. That was right before PRGE last year. And then at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, right after I got that game, I found a better condition copy for like $50 to $100 less than what I had just paid. And I bought that one as well. And yes, I do own a game store. Yes, I sold the other copy and I got my money back. But what a hassle I had to go through when I could have just waited and bought that second copy and not had to go through the process of adding the first one to my collection spreadsheet and looking at the condition and then paying that higher price. And then once I found the other one and bought that, I had to go through the process of selling the other one. So I had to change my collection spreadsheet, add the information for the new copy in terms of condition notes and stuff like that. And then I had to go through the process of selling the other one, adding it to my store's inventory, dealing with like packaging it and shipping it, because I'm pretty sure that did not sell locally. So all of that extra work that I had to do only stemmed from me experiencing FOMO and thinking, if I don't buy this game, I'm not gonna find another one. And then I found one like just a couple weeks later, and that happens all the time. So if you have ever experienced FOMO, made an impulse buy that you maybe regretted, or had some sort of anxiety about collecting, please let us know in the comments down below. If you have a story to share, I'd love to see it. Not only do I think it's an interesting thing to talk about because it's not something that I really see people talking about in the retro game collecting scene, but also for other collectors to read your stories and to see how you felt about it during or after the fact, or how you responded to it, I think can be very helpful for people to avoid the same pitfalls that they see other collectors experience, because collecting should be fun, right? And it is. But unfortunately, it's not always. And the more that we kind of understand this stuff, the more that we talk about it, the more that people can hopefully avoid the same mistakes that others have made and keep collecting what it should be, which is fun. So thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.